Well, hello and good morning. Welcome back to Deloulou, the podcast where I talk about absolutely anything that I want. And my God, do we have a lot to cover today because yesterday, on the 29th of April, me and my friend Alba moved our asses all the way over to Cologne to see the divine, the one and only Rosalia. Oh my goodness. I had been looking forward to this concert for a hot minute because we bought the tickets a while ago and it was such a struggle to even get the tickets. We were like on the phone and like texting, trying to get two seats that were next to each other because it was impossible to get multiple seats. Like everything was just individuals. And most of my friends that I was talking to about this literally just like had seats with their friends, but they were scattered all over the stadium. So that, they couldn't hang out together like while the concert was going, which on one hand is really sad. On the other hand, I was also kind of thinking it's not that bad because I do also enjoy, especially if it's a calmer, more quiet concert, to be really focused, to be really locked in, and to just enjoy the moment as is and not have it be a social interaction at the same time with the people next to me. Which, I am aware concerts are such a social event, and obviously we're all there for the purpose of seeing this musician and having this intense interaction, but also being united as fans of that person, as lovers of this type of music. Yesterday, I thought, I'm really glad that I have a friend there and that we're sitting together and everything. But also, I kind of needed a few moments to myself in that. And I also I was just like sitting there kind of hugging myself and holding myself like that because this album that Rosalia made, Lux, is so special. That album has so many messages and so many parts of it that influence me profoundly. They are so beautiful, they are so meaningful, and also she's always in her own lane. So just as a disclaimer, obviously this episode is going to be heavily Rosalia influenced, but I just need to talk about this because it was such a wonderful experience. And Rosalia is, in my opinion, like one of the artists of our generation. For me, first and foremost, I don't know what it was, but immediately when the pre-sale for the album itself came out, I got the email and I immediately pre-ordered the CD. I've never pre-ordered a CD of an album that I hadn't heard entirely. So, it was a bit weird in the first moment, but Backhand was such a hit and it was such a moment that I thought, this whole album is gonna be a moment. It's just gonna be crazy. Like, it represents so much of what we need right now. I saw the video and I was like, this is a striking visual featuring actual instrumentalists, featuring a way of making music that feels very real, that's very visceral, that's very like close to the body, which in my opinion is very much what the trend in 2026 is going towards, right? We're all doing the analog bag. We're all going back to physical media. We're listening to CDs. We're getting off our phones. Like the general trend is in that direction. So I thought, okay, she really like hit the nail on the head by doing this visual with the orchestra. That's like the visual of Backhand was just so beautiful. And therefore, I figured the whole album is going to be crazy. All of the rollout is going to be wild. So I pre-ordered the CD. It arrived one day before the album actually came out. And I kind of took that as a sign. I don't know why, but sometimes I get a little bit spiritual when it comes to shit like that. Like when things happen that kind of just like feel special and feel like the world is trying to like send me a hint, I just take it. So the album arriving one day before it was actually released, I felt really special because obviously I got to listen to it before everyone else. Like, I don't know if that's something that happens regularly when you like order a CD or a vinyl that is scheduled to arrive on release date, but it arrived a day early. So I spent one whole day just like listening to that album over and over again because I was so mesmerized and I was so enamored with it because obviously I had this like CD in my hand. It was such a precious possession in that moment because I was like, I literally have this in my hands and nobody else can get this right now. In this moment, nobody else can get this. Like for the next 12 hours, I'm alone with this album until midnight. That was such a wild feeling. When I listened to it first, my immediate favorites were Reliquia and Mio Cristo Piange in Diamanti. Those were just like so dramatic but also pop. Even during my first listen, I just immediately thought, this is gonna be immaculate live. Listening to this live and like seeing with your eyes that it is possible to create this type of soundscape and this type of virtuose vocal styling in a live setting, in an arena that is like so dominated by pop. And even like for an audience that is widely dominated by pop, I just thought this is gonna hit. This is gonna be such a push. And I kind of thought about it in a way of, and yesterday I kind of thought about it in a way of, okay, like this is such an extreme experience that it's not really possible to be like, oh yeah, like from tomorrow on, I'm gonna incorporate all of this wisdom into my life. But it was so strong that you cannot help but shift a little bit from where you were before. That's what it felt like to me. Was the whole concert was so intense and all of it was so beautiful visually, beautiful sonically, beautiful spiritually, and very uplifting and empowering, but also very accepting of the more grim areas of life. So overall, it felt like it's a big acceptance of what life is, an invitation to believe and to hope within that sphere. I thought that was so beautiful, and we just came out there and we were stunned. Like we were so shook by what had just happened. I couldn't really believe that just happened because it was such a flawless performance of probably like one of the most beautiful bodies of work that I've heard in my life. Like this is such a magnificent album. Obviously, you can watch the whole show on YouTube. I think there's like one recording of a whole concert that is available on YouTube that you can watch. And I really recommend it. I'm going to like look that up later as well and like go back into certain parts that I want to see again because I want to like really take a look at the light and the technicalities, because the moment the show starts, you immediately understand this is a stage. There is incredible engineering behind the lights, and everything is intentional. There is not one detail that was not thought about. She comes out in this box that's being unpacked, and when unpacked, folds out in the shape of a cross. And she stands on that cross in a tutu and in a like sculptural light pink ballet outfit, and performs the first few songs partly on point, where I was like, when did she even pick that up? Like, she had to have intense ballet training for this because she was dancing ballet while singing in a formation, being lifted up by other ballet dancers, like carried across the stage. And I was so mesmerized by that because I was like, this is truly something I had never seen before or heard before, of someone like singing, and especially singing like very complicated vocals while dancing ballet. That was so wild to me. I had never seen that before. Obviously, she looks stunning. The camera work is great. The frames are perfect. Like there are her face being projected onto the wall 2 times, one right and like on the right and the left. So the show is in 3 acts. She starts playing the album. Like the first 5 songs, I believe, are just like consecutively, like she would have performed it in the album. Between the first few songs, she also gives a little speech to the audience and says hello, which was really like, everything that she said in between songs felt so sincere and just like very, very heartwarming. And I don't know, something about her when she talks is just very endearing. It didn't come across as super staged and planned out and everything. Something that was really cool was that during Divinize, she sung parts of Thank You by Dido in the bridge of Divinize, which was so beautiful. Very like, it felt very direct. Like it took the energy of the song and really like directed it towards everyone in the audience, and everyone was kind of like singing along and was still like processing that was happening. I think my favorite moment of the show was in Act 1, the end of Act 1. Mio Cristo piangi diamanti is based on an aria, right? It's her way of doing an aria, making it pop, making it modern, and working with that format. And the aria is obviously, as a vocalist, absolutely, it's like the master level of singing. Usually the job of an aria is to give a solo vocalist in the piece their focal moment, to really like let them shine. And one important part of the aria is also that it includes some sort of memorable melody. So in the case of Mio Cristo piange in diamanti, I would say it's definitely the Mio Cristo piange in diamanti, Mio Cristo piange in diamanti. Like that whole part is wonderful and it's so memorable, and it repeats itself over and over. It gives structure to the piece, and it in the end climaxes into this insane high note, obviously. And then in the recording it says, and then you have all the tension, and then boom, and has the final like bass that's hitting. And then on stage it was the same thing. Everything just built up with the lights getting stronger and stronger while she's singing this insane high note, and then everything on that last hit blacks out. Everything's pitch black, and then the stage doors close again, and we see a video recording of some of the dancers being filmed while they're attempting that last high note. Very endearing. It was a moment of identification with these dancers that are part of the production, which is really cool. But you also saw them like kind of dressing up as her with white cloth and with like big dresses, and being on the microphone and trying to sing this but not really being able to. And it kind of created this moment of relatability to what we're seeing in the video, and we were like, oh yeah, Lord, that's us. Like that really is us. But with that whole climax, you have this emotional intensity that is required, that is communicated within the aria through intense technical skill, through breath control, crazy range. Like she is going so high up, but she begins the song almost like in a talking range, right? It's pretty deep. And also with that communication of this intensity, there's like this demand for agility when it comes to the vocal, right? There's runs, there's trills, there's coloratura, there's very dramatic diction. She's almost over-pronouncing these Italian phrases, right? And then on top, the aria is always in a dramatic setting of like having a powerful point in the piece, and usually includes heightened, almost overly dramatic lyrics sometimes. And of course, like with Il mio Cristo piangi diamanti, my Christ is crying diamonds, that very much is the case. I don't know why this had to be the day for my neighbor to mow the lawn right now, and it's so loud, but we're gonna have to live with it for the moment because I'm already too deep into recording to cancel right now, so that's okay. What all of this creates is a centerpiece, right? You get a dramatic, heightened, poetic, climactic, vocally impressive, but emotionally really aggressive. Like it aggressively asks for your empathy. It's supposed to really move you and like get through to you. So experiencing that on a pop stage And having that happen, and then everything goes pitch black and is followed, but it's followed by a moment of relatability. It was such a beautiful theatrical structure to have. The show continues. It goes back and forth between being really emotional and kind of more sit down and listen, and then being super dancey. So then we get act 2 of it. It opens up with Berghain, but it's an extended version with a very ravey outro that was like super overstimulating, but it was crazy. We all still listened to that while sitting, and then she played a few songs off of Motomami. So she started with Saoko, and everyone got up and was shaking ass. It was so fun. Like, it was amazing. She went into La Fama, but La Fama was also being accompanied by the orchestra, which was so, so, so cool. Oh my God. And then she played La Combi Versace also. That was so cool. And in that whole context, I thought that that song was really cool because, of course, it's talking about these clothes and it's kind of like glorifying this brand. And she also addresses that it doesn't matter if the clothes are fake, like it's just about what they represent, which in this context of Catholicism and this light shining outwards from within yourself and everything, it was kind of cool to actually see that, because it really, like, this element of superficiality within that song worked really well in that setting. And then she came back to De Madruga, also so fun, everybody dancing, it was a blast. And then the stage was closed again. We get a quick intermission. The doors open again. She's on a pedestal in a tight white dress, and it shows her body through the dress because she's being lit from the back. And she's singing El Redentor. Very beautiful moment that is kind of giving like a musical moment that feels like it's besides the album, but very relevant to the album. And as soon as she finishes, they start pulling down a tapestry and bringing up a frame on that pedestal. So there's a golden frame floating, and behind it, there's a tapestry. So as soon as she gets up and walks into that frame, it looks like a full painting, because it's like there's a frame, there's the backdrop behind the frame, so you get like the background texture of the tapestry, and then her as the subject in the middle. They ask fans to come on stage and stand behind a construction of like stanchion barriers, so it's like in a museum, so they don't come too close to the painting. Obviously, all the fans have their phones, they're filming, so it fully creates this theatrical moment that is pointing towards the way that we look at art and that we perceive the world of art right now. And she, in this frame, performs Can't Take My Eyes Off of You by Frankie Valli. And I was like, wow, this is beautiful. Obviously, every time that in the concert somebody plays one of the classics, it's like a beautiful moment because it connects people of all ages, blah, blah, blah. However, Can't Take My Eyes Off You in this context felt really, really special, because through the way that it was staged, it became a reflection on celebrity culture. It became a reflection on how the body of celebrities now kind of takes that space that used to be occupied by works of art, for example. We look at these celebrities like they're works of art, right? And obviously with Can't Take My Eyes Off of You, in that song, Frankie Valli sings towards his lover and creates this air around them of being the most desirable and also depending on them and being very like needy, right? And that's, of course, what's happening. And through the way that it was staged, we're hearing this like, I need you, baby, while the fans are literally looking at Rosalia like a few meters away from them through their phones because they're filming on stage. Like, it's so crazy because it works perfectly. Like, it's so well orchestrated. And then in that moment that feels almost pointed and feels almost like an accusation, we circle back and go into the confession. So she brings what she introduces as a friend on stage, brings her behind that pedestal that she was sitting on before. On the screens, we see the two sides of a confession booth. And she's holding the microphone up to the confessional grill in the middle, so you can hear both of them. Her friend, or that person that they asked to be on stage, like, shares an insane story of how, like, she basically was having sex with her boyfriend while cooking, and her boyfriend had period blood on his finger and, like, stirred the pasta with it, and then his mom ate the pasta. But anyways, since we right after that hear this crazy story, you know, we kind of get into a more forgiving moment. And it was very apparent that obviously it's going to go into La Perla, because that's the accusatory song of the album, right? But she also says, like, in that conversation, we all have a little La Perla in us, right? And then she performs the song. It's amazing. It was so great. She then walks up on the pedestal again. There's a piano on the pedestal. She lies on the piano and drinks a glass of wine with the pianist, and they perform Sauvignon Blanc. Then going into La Jugular, which again is such a climax. And then on the end of that, there's this spoken word part of it with, like, 7 heavens. I want to see the 8th heaven, 10th heaven, 1000th heaven, which they use to close the stage doors again. And then we see a really cute interlude of, like, an art cam. It's basically the same thing that they do at sporting events, where they will film into the crowd and then put up the celebrity lookalike. But they film in the crowd, show a painting, and then ask you to, like, reenact the painting. So, like, they will show the screen, film someone, they see themselves on screen, and then they go like this. So funny. It was a really cute interlude, and, like, not very boring. And the thing is, I talked with my friend Jin about this the other day. If you plan events now, if you plan concerts now, it has to be theatrical and seamless. You cannot have a moment of silence, because people will go on their phones. So having that art cam that was kind of fast paced was good, because it stopped everyone from going on their phones in that intermezzo. Like, it always had to be something, so the attention is being kept on stage, being kept in the front, because it is incredibly hard to keep people's attention on stage with you during concerts. It's almost impossible these days. And if you have this many outfit changes, this many changes of set design and lighting changes, you have to have a minute to just, like, reassemble everything backstage. So it's obvious that they need that time, but they solved it really, really, really well. After that, she does her portion that is in the middle of the crowd area. So there's, like, obviously the orchestra in the middle. So she enters from stage right, like, touches the fans and everything, like, while performing Dios es un stalker, goes up to the middle, performs the song there. Then she performs La Rumba del Perdón. Amazing. Alba loved it. It's her favorite, one of her favorites of the album, so she had a great time. And then it goes into Cute, but a shortened version, and it has a, like, remix of Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics in it. So cool. Very unexpected, but really, really cool. And then during Cute, it is wild. So during Cute, you see on the screens a top shot from the camera that is being slowly zoomed in or lowered, right? Getting closer and closer to that formation, and it's showing the cross, because the orchestra is sitting in a cross formation and being surrounded by strips of light. So you see that lit up cross with the orchestra from the top. The camera moves down, and that object was, like, secured by a huge chain and then a few wires. And I thought that was just it. I thought it was just, like, the block for the camera. But I also was thinking, like, it's a bit big for that. I was not ready. That object started steaming and sending off strobe light effects. So it was lighting up. It had fog machines on the inside of the fucking object that also held the camera. And then it starts moving. And I was like, what is going on? And then it, like, hit me that it's, like, a reference to the Botafumero, the huge 1.5 meter incense burner that they use in the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela. which is the cathedral where you end the Camino de Santiago, which is like this long pilgrimage. And then Botafumero just means smoke spreader, but it's like this huge incense burner that moves. And it like lights up, smokes, and swings across the arena while still displaying what the camera sees from the top on the screens. It was such a cool moment in stage design. I had never seen that before. It was so elaborate, but like the whole show, it was so clean. It was incredibly clean. Like I had never seen a show that clean before. Especially because everything was really subdued in color. There were only like 1 or 2 moments in red or in blue, and then everything else was pretty neutral lighting, but very cinematic in the warmth of it, and that it was being placed in circular spots. So it was giving theater, it was also giving film from time to time. And also because the screens were involved, of course you get cinematic moments because there's camera movement and everything. Obviously, all of these mediums influence each other and blend together in whatever way in a concert. So then she leaves again, dramatic moment over with the Botafumero. Oh my God, I can't believe it though. Like she took the mood into such an eerie, scary place with this huge object that's swinging around while there's like this intense remix of Cute playing. And then she continues to like lift the mood right back up because the last block of the show was Bizcochito, Despecha, and Fokurani. This was so crazy. Like, it was wild. It was just, it's too much almost because it was such an intense experience. I can barely like grasp it. And obviously I have to look at the set list to like even like remember all of it because there was so much happening. Obviously there's like 23 songs in this show and every one is a theatrical experience of their own, has entirely unique visuals and choreographies. Like even just the choreography of La Perla was the most insane thing I had ever seen. Her being basically dressed in the arms of the dancers that like are wrapped around her, functioning as a dress because there's so many arms underneath each other, forming shapes around her, lifting her up within a circle of arms, carrying her across the stage. There's like lighting that's perfectly choreographed. 2 circular spots next to her that end right at the seam of her black gloves that she's wearing. So it's like her white dress, light skin, but then black gloves with white circles around it. So it's so contrasty and clean. And then I had never seen something so elaborately thought out and be so clean. Like insane. And then to think that honestly it was one of the cheaper concerts that I got tickets to this year is crazy. So obviously Bizcochito, Despecha, we all dance, we all shake ass, it's amazing, having such a good time. And then she brings it back to a moment of sincerity with Fokurani, which is I'm getting goosebumps right now as I'm just talking about it, because Fokurani has to be my favorite off the album because it is such a testament to keeping your independence, to sticking with who you are, believing in yourself, finding hope within like the existence of your soul at its core, and just through that existence finding resilience against relationships, like not giving into the expectations of a lover. It's so beautiful. Like, oh my goodness, Fokurani is so marvelous. And doing it in Sicilian, which has such a unique diction again. I don't know if it's like maybe even a reference. Like when I was listening to Fokurani for the first time, I thought Sicilian is like such a specific thing. I thought, because obviously she is from Catalonia, I thought that because Rosalia is from Catalonia, maybe the use of Sicilian is a nod to her heritage also, because I think, as far as I know, she speaks Catalan as well. So therefore, she has that background of speaking like Castellano, the like Spanish that most people know, and speaking Catalan, which is spoken in Catalonia. And then that is often treated as just like a dialect of Spanish, but it is its entirely own language and it is recognized as such. The same thing goes for Italian and Sicilian, also two entirely different languages that are related, like all of the Romance languages are, but they are often not treated as separate languages, and people often just interpret Sicilian as an accent of Italian, but it's not. It is its own language with its own grammar and everything. Because that is the situation for both of these language relationships between Castellano and Catalan and Italian and Sicilian, I thought maybe that's kind of a nod to it, which makes it even more beautiful to end on that note in the concert, right? With that Sicilian part of it. And I'm just going to assume that for a lot of people, it was the first time coming in contact with Sicilian as a language at all, like this album, this song. As someone who like went to study Romance languages in university for a year when I was 18, like it kind of warms my heart to see her do something like that. I just don't know. It just kind of warms my heart. I feel like it's a love letter to language in and of itself. And obviously she worked together with translators for the album. To me, that's very cool because obviously that doesn't happen too much these days because everyone's just doing everything with AI. But she like got translators on the team, was working with them to translate in all of these, like, I think 12, is it 12 or 14 languages? One of the two. And then after Fokurani, stage doors close, beautiful moment, everyone's clapping, and then she comes back out for Magnolias, the big ending. It was so beautiful. The light flows through a gap that is being made in the pedestal, and she kind of backs out. You see the silhouette, and then everything closes. It's gorgeous, beautiful. The song is amazing. So everything was just like, it was a perfect ending. Okay, that was a pretty long recap of the concert. It's probably not that interesting. However, I want to go into like a few thoughts that I had on it just in general. First of all, I thought it was really beautiful that she made it clear in every moment of the show we all have this concept of Lux inside of us. And then also, it didn't need her making that album to create that. It has always been there. It has always been everywhere. I feel like I've repeatedly said that everything was so meticulously done in this show and everything was planned out perfectly and so thought through. That made me really think, wow, everything matters. Every single detail of what we do has impact whether we like it or not. The fact that you might see a gap in this curtain has an effect on how you perceive this video, on how you perceive this episode. What I'm wearing has an impact. There are all of these things that impact how we receive the situation. And I just really have to like give a hats off to Rosalia and her team. It was flawless. It was truly flawless. And seeing something be executed so flawlessly made me more ambitious again, I would say. I'm more motivated again to like just put effort in because of that show. Like it made me want to care again. In times like these, where we have this development of a coarsening society, a dehumanization of society, and quite honestly, a brutalization of society, having a moment in music and as a concert that makes you want to care and makes you want to look at details and give a shit again. So special, so hard to do in a way that's not cringe. I thought it was beautiful. I also couldn't help but think about the fact that music is able to portray so much hope and positivity, and I struggle with finding an equivalent to that in photography. Like photography is obviously my preferred medium and I study it and it's like what I do. I'm struggling to find ways of incorporating that same light and positivity into photography without going into humor necessarily. But I thought this empowering quality of this album, and not empowerment in a sense of like I can do it, but like empowerment in a sense of I'm allowed to hope, was so mesmerizing. And it also made me think, like, why does that feel feminine? That was a question that was floating around my head while I was falling asleep yesterday. Why does being hopeful and optimistic and looking for the details and the beauty and caring, why does all of that feel like it's addressing the feminine side of myself? Because I'm working on my thesis right now. I'm writing about male body image. I'm trying to understand how we view men's bodies. I'm trying to understand how all of that plays into the development of how we see male bodies right now, because there is this whole looks maxing thing going on, right? Young men see themselves very, very differently. They think there are these strategies to going about changing your look and all that. It's a whole thing. But yesterday I couldn't help but think, maybe if you're not as tuned in to your femininity and not accepting at all of that, there might also not really be an incentive to hope, and there might not be an idol, an image of a person to look up to that represents this combination of hope and masculinity. But that was just like a random thought that I had. Maybe I'm gonna like think about that again and like get into it. But yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about this album again in a different context in a few weeks, because I am reading La Distinction by Pierre Bourdieu right now. Talked about it in my fashion episode last summer. It is a book that is very essential for sociology, and I think it's pretty essential to understanding how we work as a society when it comes to the things we wear and the things we present on social media. So I want to address the concerts that have a dress code, like Lux, for example. I want to address the album, and I want to address this combination of like classical music and pop that's happening with Rosalia, with Ray, with all of these musicians that are now incorporating orchestras. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to go into that at some point. And I'm going to unwind now and take a shower, because I literally started filming this the second after I got home from the apartment where we were staying in Cologne for that concert. So I'm going to go freshen up and catch up on some sleep. And I hope you have a great week. I'll see you for the next episode. And yeah, until then, bye-bye.